Hello, folks. Welcome to Cinema Alley, the podcast where your host, James Howe, and
I'm Chris Cupp.
talk about the stories of your favorite movies from past to present. On this show, we will be breaking down the stories for you cinephiles and casual moviegoers before we make comparisons to the final film and then wrap it up with our final thoughts. Chris,
James,
happy May the 4th be with you day. Happy May the 4th.
I'm feeling the force.
You're
It feels
feeling
great.
it? You're
Oh,
feeling
yeah.
it? Oh my god. For one, it's not only May the Force be with you day, May the 4th, but it's also the first episode of our podcast Cinema Alley. You
Whoop.
know, and what better way, folks, than to start our journey here with storytelling than to talk about one of the most iconic films in the milestone of cinema. You know, it's while it's maybe not revolutionized story, it's more done it in the other veins of cinematography, special effects, but we do have to talk about the simplicity of just how great of a story this is of a farm boy who wishes to escape his home to go on adventures, and in those adventures makes new friends, meets new enemies. It's what we go to the theater to see. And before we jump into our breakdown, folks, I would like to fuck hold on, we may have to cut that part. All right. One, two, three. Before we jump into the breakout, one. Before we jump into the breakdown, we need to put out there that we read our scripts on the ScriptLab.com. That's where we get most of our scripts for this season, and it's very much where we get a lot of our information from. This is not a sponsorship, this is not a plug, but if you do want to follow along with us, this is the website that we go to in the today's draft of what we're following. Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, written by George Lucas. This is the fourth draft, released January 15th, 1976. That's the draft that we're going to be examining, analyzing, talking about the structure, talking about the characters. This is the edition that we're doing. So, in case the folks are like, well, this wasn't in the final cut of the movie, it's like, exactly, this is the screenplay. Not everything makes it in there, but we will talk about that later on in the show. Chris, are you ready for the breakdown to one of the most simplest stories, but yet one of the most engaging stories that has endured years and years as a franchise?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's jump right in.
Even though it's been milked for all of its worth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we can give our own little, you know, uh, opinions about the story and like how things could have been different or how we like the changes, because you don't really hear about all the differences before the script goes through, before it reaches the final screen, and you see it in theaters.
Exactly. And yeah, you know what? I'm hyped. Let's jump right into the breakdown. Okay? So we're gonna start right here with the quick prologue. We get the iconic scrawl. It's the Civil War. It's the Empire versus the rebels. We set the mood, and I was actually surprised to even find this because you don't see this in many scripts to begin with. So something that was so iconic that I thought was actually made in the post production editing was actually right here in the script, and I absolutely love it. We open up with the Star Destroyer attacking the Rebel blockade. We are introduced to C-3PO and R2-D2 on board of the Rebel blockade runner, with R2 having the Death Star schematics downloaded into him, as well as the distress message from Princess Leia Organa. The droids escape, all while Darth Vader is infiltrating the ship with the stormtroopers, who, of course, we all know these stormtroopers, they can't hit anything. There is one thing I do really want to point out with the screenplay is the way that the stormtroopers are described. If I can quickly find that right now, they yeah, I'm trying to find it. Let's see. I remember they actually had a description in here, but it doesn't really describe them as the way that we see in the film. So I do think that with this screenplay moving forward, we won't go into too much detail of like what the character looked like in this. That's a little too detailed for us. But you know, as you read through the script, folks, you will see a difference even in how characters are described. And one thing going forward is I have to say this script has to be one of the best scripts to ever describe aliens and monsters. This has to be one of the best scripts ever. And I had problems with this script going later on, but we'll reach that river when we cross it. But between all the firefights in space, we cut to Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, establishing our story's protagonist. This is how we end our 6-page prologue to this iconic journey. We are finally introduced to Luke Skywalker as he sees the flashes of light from Tatooine, and it's very what's the word I'm looking for, Chris? Switching back and forth between Luke looking up, seeing just these little fractions of light gleaming, while when we cut back, it feels like it's almost like a war, above Tatooine. What's the best way to really describe that? It's not
Jarring?
jarring. Is
Not
it
jarring?
jarring?
I mean,
I'm a writer, and yet I you probably couldn't even tell me the definition of jarring off the
when,
top of my head. So
it's just it's I don't know. Yeah, jarring doesn't feel like the right word because it's like it feels like a distraction almost. Like when you're reading this, you notice Luke is introduced way sooner into the script than he is in the movie, and I get why Lucas put that in there. He wants us to see from the point of view of Luke, like, oh wow, there's a space battle going on above me. This is wild, and like he's trying to introduce the protagonist in his natural world, and like seeing, oh wow, there's a space battle. But like in the film, I feel like it would have broken up the pacing a little bit. You know, it would have stopped the
yeah,
film just to like introduce this kid when all the action's going on upstairs in the sky. You know, and
like it's nice to see in the screenplay that the writer would give a sort of, it's like a reverse bird's eye view of the battle, because the battle's happening up top, not down below.
yeah,
So I do give Lucas props. There's a couple of things in this script I give Lucas props, because he's okay for a screenwriter. I like him better as a director. And you know not jumping too far in there, you can watch any manner of uh documentaries that talk about George Lucas's work on this film, like the ILM documentary on Disney. I think that one does the best in how it, talks about how George works. Um, but yeah, this opening with how they introduce it, yeah, it probably would have broken up the pace of it, but it is nice to kind of see a little bit of hey, what's it like? Because I don't think any other Star Wars movie's ever done that.
like showing just like a
like
random
like an actual,
characters.
like if there's a space battle up top and we're getting the point of view of the people down below. I don't think you even see that, not even in the prequels.
I
But in
mean,
the
yeah,
prequels
you're
there
always
wasn't that many
in the
space
battle.
battles.
Like
Yeah,
you're never
yeah.
like just
I
some
think this is
innocent
more of a learning
bystander.
lesson for Lucas was still learning everything.
Yeah,
So, but still, it's not a bad thing. You don't see this too much. You don't see this whatsoever. You kind of see it maybe in war pictures, but instead of being above, like you usually kind of like see people live out their daily lives while like it's in the distance, and it kind of just sounds like like a thunderstorm coming, and they're just doing their things, and it's like, oh well, what the hell is that? And then you cut to, you
yeah.
see that in some war pictures, but this is kind of like a first to me of reading anything in a screenplay that put that much of detail into the boring sand-filled life of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but
triggers his
moving forward,
imagination. He wants to like
yes,
he wants to
very
get up
much.
there and see what's going on. You know, he wants to be involved in that. And you see that
And
later in the
and
script.
we'll talk about exactly how the people feel about that. The people on Tatooine, when this is a big thing. Luke wants off the planet, and I kind of feel, as much as this scene kind of breaks up the pace, uh, it also gives us an insight on exactly what our character wants. Not war, but he just wants off the planet. He's more obsessed with what's up there than what's down here.
He wants
Um,
something greater than this life that he's in. You know, he wants to be on an adventure.
exactly. And with that, we're already on Tatooine. The droids have landed, and they're going their separate ways. And sidebar for a moment, you'll get that a lot, especially from me, because I am like a rant master on everything. But I never really quite had figured out how much of a foul mouth R2D2 has until the Tatooine scene. Like the whole story progressed. I kind of thought when Family Guy did it, it's all like, oh, this is like a little bit excessive. But when I read the script, it's like, oh my god, you don't know what he's saying, but it sounds pretty freaking filthy and downright rude. R2D2 is like a rude little shit.
Yeah, I know that Lucas says like Star Wars was for the kids and stuff, but like I feel like early on he was writing this as more of a serious like
Yeah.
sci-fi movie. But
Like
like
I'm pretty sure those tough days that he was writing, he's like, you know what? I'll just make R2 say a bunch of random bleeps, and that's just how I feel about today. And
yeah.
you know, but we're gonna come across one of our first deleted scenes from the film, and this is when Luke goes to the power station. It continues off of that little breakneck. Luke is looking up at the stars. He sees the battle, and we have him going to the power station at Anchorhead Settlement to hang out with his friends. And we're introduced to more background characters like the Fixer and Cammy, which really they're only in the scene; they're nowhere else. But more importantly, we get Biggs. We get Biggs. The iconic character of this that no one probably really talks about unless you're deep into the fandom of Star
Yeah.
Wars, which we may have picked this for our first episode, folks, but I'm not that deep of a Star Wars. I watch the movies and some of the TV shows. So if Biggs comes out as like some bigger person from like another TV show, I apologize if I don't know that.
I
Chris is
mean,
more the specialist on that sort of thing.
I don't remember seeing him in Rebels, and like in the movie, you only get the sense that he's only been off world for like a year or so, and there's
Yeah,
not a lot for him to have done anyways because he was at the academy. But
yeah,
like you, I like the you get the sense that he was kind of an older brother to Luke. Like he's the older kid that Luke looked up to, and when you're
he's
watching the deleted scene, you're like, "Oh, welcome back, man! Like it's good to see you. Like thank God you're back because this life place sucks without you." You know?
Yeah, because being there with even Fixer and Cammy, going back to it when they're there and Luke is still noticing the firefight and he brings it to the attention to them and Biggs. Uh, Cammy and the Fixer don't really give two shits about him. They
Yeah,
don't. Luke is almost like that little kid in the gang that constantly follows the friends around, but it's almost like he's not really part of the gang. And Biggs is the only one that really accepts him outside of Luke's immediate family on Tatooine. So this kind of goes. I can understand why they delete it, but it also kind of goes to show just how does the ordinary world view Luke Skywalker? You know, uh,
as
local moist
Wormy,
farm. His what?
as Wormy. Did you read in the
His
script?
wormy.
His nickname is Wormy.
That's right. Yeah, like was that in the deleted scene?
I don't know if it was in the latest scene, but I
I have to go
remember
back and watch
noting
that.
it in this in my notes here. Like Wormy, that's kind of a lame nickname, but all right.
Exactly. Well,
I,
like
I
it's on.
know.
He works on a moisture farm, so I guess
I
worms are
mean,
linked to sand and moisture. I don't know.
I I guess I just always like looking back on all Lucas's stuff. He's
This
always
isn't the
kind of
best.
best with coming up with names. The coolest. Like at one point, I think he wanted Star Killer from the Force Unleashed game to be
Yeah,
called like Darth Icky or something. Like kind of lazy when it comes to names shit.
that sounds like a placeholder, and then he obviously forgot. Oh shit! I forgot to write something a little bit more like smart, a
Yeah,
little bit more wiser, a little bit better. But yeah, so this is like a whole deleted scene that very much follows the big storyline that gets picked up later on in the story. But this is kind of like our first introduction to Biggs. He's like a big brother. He's the only guy that actually kind of gives Luke that satisfaction of you're not the only guy who wants to get off this rock. He is the complete total opposite in the situation of Luke, where Luke wants to get off, and he's immediately getting ready to go off world.
Yeah.
And with this, Biggs does confide that he secretly joined the Rebel Alliance and will leave by the morning. Therefore, it's kind of cementing that Luke is going to be, kind of lonely and alone on this rock for his remainder of the Tatooine, up until we meet the droids and everything. But for that moment, you kind of feel bad for him. It's like the one guy that gives a shit about him is he's about to go, put his life out there, to save the galaxy, and poor Luke is stuck here on a moisture farm.
Yeah. And you see that
And
frustration later in the film, like, Biggs was right. I'm never getting out of here.
exactly. And with that, we move over to Luke and Uncle Owen buying off the droids. The droids have been caught by the Jawas.
Mhm.
Um, and I think you only see it. You only see it with R2. You don't see how they capture, because it's not even in the script of how they capture 3PO. But they snuck up on R2 and shot him with like a little uh
Really?
EMP dart
I
thing,
mean,
and they huh?
I thought it was played. I thought it played out just like in the film, like where he sees something in the distance. He's like, "Over here."
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, you don't get to sit there and see them like cast a net or shoot
Oh
three
yeah,
PO. I'm talking more like 3PO. 3PO is like, this is some shady ass part of town,
yeah,
like even in the Family Guy, that they you know uh the Cleveland R2 unit makes reference. It's all like, oh, this looks like the wrong side of town, and the Jawa just like pops up and stuns them.
yeah.
So we get to there, they've been captured. So now Luke and Uncle Owen had just bought him off after R2 and 3PO kind of sit there and see one of the droids that Uncle Owen first bought is like, kind of crappy and everything. It's, it shorts out like not even 5 seconds after paying.
Yeah.
So they get these droids. They're kind of like a return. Oh, you give us this hunk of junk, and we'll give you two fixing droids. And then Luke goes and he starts cleaning up the droids. He's following. He's doing his chores. Luke finds a partial piece of a message and Leia's recording of R2D2 of "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." It's one of the most iconic lines in cinema, let alone Star Wars. Um, and what is it, at dinner, Luke is asking old Ben about the who the droids could belong to. He mentions the academy. Luke is really he's kind of poking Uncle Owen. It's all like, these droids that we got, they belong to a guy named old Ben. Oh, but also I want to go to the academy. And Uncle Owen really kind of wants to help his nephew out here, but kind of really feels like he's ball and chaining our guy. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, he's filling him out. He's like, he doesn't want to leave his family high and dry, but like he also wants to get out of there. And I mean, when they're talking about the academy, did you get the sense that it was an imperial academy? Because Luke
No, they
just
just label it as the Academy, but I'm pretty sure the Academy is like just a Empire, uh, a Empire um,
school or something. Just
recruitment center.
yeah,
It's like, we're gonna teach you how to fly all of this, but you're gonna work for the Empire regardless. Like, because why are you gonna go join a band of guerrilla? Because at this moment, just because we have given it a name of the the rebel scum, the rebels, to begin with, they're not really like an army. It's just
yeah,
like a band of outlaws and protesters and activists, even political activists. It's it's a mixture of different things. It's a mixture of different people from different backgrounds with the same ideology of, we're not going to take this shit anymore, and we're not going to let you keep I don't know, kicking dust in our face. So
yeah.
yeah, like
I just
I think
wonder,
when
like,
we talk I think when we talk about the academy, at least in the script, it's an Empire, recruitment center.
okay, I
It's
was just
almost like it's almost like kind of like going to I don't know, like oh yeah, you kind of compare it to boot camp. It's like, oh, I'm going to boot camp, so that obviously means I'm going to go join the U.S. Army, you know, or whatever army, you know, in whatever country, you know, I'm going to go serve my, you know. Though of course this is all more the ideology of the empire. It's not really a country. It's not a planet. It's an idea. It's a very very nasty uh, hate filled idea that's full of corruption and yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I
Yeah.
would actually really like to sit there and see a film focused on that.
Well, they touch
Uh,
upon like academy stuff in the animated series, like Rebels, like
yeah,
with the
but how
kids. Like
many of the actual casual moviegoers that follow Star Wars are gonna watch? It took me years to watch Rebels.
they, everyone should watch Rebels. They should watch Clone Wars and
They,
Rebels.
they they should with as much hard work as those animators go through, but you know it's when you ask the casual person of like, I wonder where they're going to go with this, and it's like, oh well, they're talking about this, and it's like, well, what's that about? It's like, oh well, if you watch Rebels or if you watch this, and you're like, what's that? And it's like, it's a show that's been on for 10 years, or you know, they're like, oh, I never knew, and they're not going to watch it because it's not within the capacity of an hour and a half to 2 hours, you know. Um, it's something that they know. It's like, I like the saga, but I'm not that invested. So I would actually really like a movie that just kind of talks about it. You know, I'm kind of part of that. You know, I'll watch it if the show's decent. I need to pick back up on the Bad Batch. You know, because I really loved the first couple episodes I watched. It's actually really really good. I kind of heard towards the end it kind of falls off a little bit, but I'll
I mean,
still give it a chance.
not for me. I love the whole season, man. It felt like Clone Wars like 2.0. You know.
Well, that's kind of what they are, you
Yeah.
know. It's but you know, like I would actually like the kind of because it's the one thing what I really liked about what was it, Rogue One, even though it wasn't so much of an isolated story, but also it's like Han Solo. I like the Solo movie. It was a nice little isolated thing, and then you got that little nod to Darth Maul, like, oh, Darth Maul is the big baddie in the underground world at that time. And it's like, you know what, we need more isolated stories, you know, kind of similar like the Mandalorian. It's not all super tied into the Skywalker saga. It's But it doesn't hurt to make these stories and then make your own modern day legends, you know, like what they did back then with Luke, Han, and Leia and Chewie, you
Yeah.
know. Grand Moff Tarkin, he was only in one movie, still a legend. Vader, you know, I kind of still feel like modern day, the reason why I think modern day Star Wars doesn't hit all too well, it's it's like, really think about it. How many icons can you actually see there? Maybe Finn and Ray and what's the emo guy's name?
Poe.
No, no,
Ben.
no, no, no. The
Ben
uh
Solo. The
Yeah, Ben Solo. There we
Yeah.
go. But
Kylo
the
Ren.
Sith name, Kylo Ren. There you
Yeah.
go. See, folks, this shows you how much I care. I don't like the sequel trilogy. I prefer the prequels over that. And
Well,
I know people hate the
that's a
prequels. You know,
whole other episode.
yeah, that's a whole other
That's a whole other
episode.
thing, a whole other can of
But
worms.
that goes to show you, it's, to me, it's, they don't really have such, like, it's great that they have Ray as the forefront. That's like probably the one great Legends character that probably within 10 years people are gonna say, like, yeah, you remember Ray. You know, it's like the writing on the wall wasn't all that great, kind of like in the middle point, but she still is a really decent character that we can all get behind, you know. um,
They
she
all
is
could
the
have been
modern
better.
day millennium of like what do I do with my life? Like, what, you know, what is my purpose? You know, what's my identity? I kind of feel like that's what most modern day people would probably connect to her with,
Yeah. I
um,
mean,
because
there's just a lot that could have been done differently with that sequel trilogy.
exactly.
But
But we completely we went so off a tirade. My bad.
you got to
Again,
settle down, man.
I
But
know, but at the same time, I need to also not apologize because going through these next couple episodes, there will be tirades aplenty.
yeah,
So keep apologizing. People are gonna be like, dude, just don't apologize. Just get the rate out of your freaking get the rant out of your system, and then let's get back on. So yeah, so the academy. Luke wants to go there. Uncle Owen sat there and says, "You can go next year, next harvest. You know, I need you so that we can get this harvest going, so we can hire on some more help." You know, I do kind of feel like it's a ball and chain relationship, but at the same time, I think Owen kind of knows that Luke is getting tired of being home. You know, and even Aunt
Amber,
Aunt Peru,
Baru.
even mentions it's like he has no friends here. It's like what else do you think the boy's going to stay around here for? It's like really the moisture farm, which it goes to show you that maybe she doesn't have that much hope in the moisture farm that it's going to last that long. It's not something to keep the family together. um, but Luke gets frustrated with all this, with the whole mentioning of Kenobi and the academy, and it feels like he just can't he's frustrated in life, and he feels like he can't really win, especially with his uncle, who obviously he has to have some respect for, because I think if any other kid he would have just left. But no, he wants to be that helpful family person. So upon going back to the garage, Luke finds that R2 is run off and 3PO is hiding, and so Luke has to go look for R2, and he gets jumped by the Tusken Raiders. Uh, Chris, do you want to sit there and carry on? What happens next?
Well, he gets attacked by the Tusken Raiders, and he's knocked out, and then he's saved miraculously by Ben Kenobi, who mimics a cry from a crate dragon to scare off the Tusken Raiders. It's pretty cool because he's got the whole wizard uniform on, and like Lucas clearly wanted to like invoke the this is the wizard coming to mentor to come save Luke and show him like there's something else he can be doing with his life, you know. And,
Yeah, I get Gandalf vibes in the script. When I read it, I get something like a Gandalf vibe or a
yeah,
Merlin vibe. Like they really George was really hitting the wizard shit, you know.
yeah. There's a lot
Um,
of exclamation points with his dialogue.
yes, and it's
He's
like when you look at how what is it, Sir Alec Guinness portrayed it. It's like he talks just so calm and like this, and yeah, in the script it's like he's shouting, and it's like is this a batshit wizard, or is this a shrooms taking wizard? Like
yeah, you get the idea that something like he's kind of a crazy old man that came from hermit from the desert. Like he's like
exactly.
overly enthusiastic about wanting to join the fight. I mean, you kind of see that when they're in his hut and he's like, "You need to learn the ways of the
Yeah,
Force," and
yeah.
he's like a little enthusiastic. Like he sees the hope and like excitement in Luke's eyes when he's like lighting the lightsaber, and he just wants to do right by Luke and show him the ways of the Force.
Also too, I'm pretty sure for him it's like, oh my god, the Force, like I have someone to talk about my religion with me. Holy hell, it's like, but also at the same time, we're reading strictly from the script, trying to cut out what the Obi-Wan Kenobi series had give us answers, because that right there showed Obi-Wan's rekindling of his belief in the Force and all that, when after the events of episode 3, it's like he's kind of exiled himself and kind of given up on all that. But focusing on the script, it's like it almost feels like he doesn't really converse with many people. He definitely lives a very quiet life, and but also too with the Jedi tricks that we do later, it's like chances are you could be a Jedi with horrible social skills and still make it in society. It's just gotta use that mind trick and pray that their minds are weak enough for you to do it.
Yeah,
But yeah, so Oben takes Luke back to where to his home, and they show Leia's message. Luke learns that his father was a Jedi and died by the hands of Darth Vader, the guy we saw earlier that was um, killing
attacking
the rebel troopers. And also too, I do believe at the beginning, wasn't Leia already being tortured in the
tortured.
script?
Uh, I mean, if
Because
she
that had
was, I
been the
didn't make
rewrite
note of it.
that they rewrote her torture scene, but in this draft, with the foreseen knowledge of how the other films come out, this goes to show you Darth Vader is a horrible father. He is.
Yeah.
In this script, he tortures Princess Leia, I think, like twice. Um,
Well,
and
I mean, we also got to remember at the time, like, he didn't plan on making Darth Vader the father
yeah,
because he had to consult like a child psychologist for Empire Strikes Back to see how kids would react to this
yeah,
news, because he was thinking like, how can I improve the story and how can I put Vader more at the forefront and make him more
yeah.
important to Luke, and like that's how he did it. But like,
But
and just making them all family kind of was just an afterthought when it came to once a movie was released. Okay, how can I wrap this up better?
yeah,
It's,
but still, when you look back at all this, it's all like, not only did he cut off his own son's hand and almost killed him, he freaking tortured his daughter. This guy is not Father of the Year whatsoever. He's
yeah,
got to be like the worst dad ever in cinema. Um, so yeah, going back with Darth Vader, Obi-Wan tells Luke that he will accompany Obi-Wan to Alderaan for the journey. So this is more or less the call to adventure, I believe so. When Luke is just living this down to the dirt life, and then these droids come in, and the mention of old Ben, it shakes up his uncle, and R2 gets freed. Luke is going after him. It's all like, my uncle paid for you, damn it. We're not gonna sit there and lose you, especially the Tusken Raiders. And in a sense, he ends up getting jumped, and Obi comes to save him. The mentor comes a little bit before the call to adventure. Usually, you do see in some stories where there is some mentor character that comes a little bit later. This one actually kind of came a little bit earlier before the mentor stuff uh, came. But to me, I look at this as for Luke's call to adventure. Um, and it's like you're gonna come to me with Alderaan, and with the topic of the Empire searching for the droids, it reminded Luke that, with the droids probably being tracked and everything, they went to Uncle Luke and Aunt Peru's place. So
yeah.
where do you think the Empire is going to
Back home.
go? Now, like, I don't know how I feel about this, because kind of really feels like these characters got the shaft. Like, maybe they only had the actors for like a day,
Eh,
and it's like when Luke gets there, it's like they're fried. Every one of them, they're nothing but charred skeleton, which
yeah.
makes me wonder, what weapons did they use?
Well, that's another thing. It's obvious like Lucas was still working out the kinks to his entire world. Like just
With
setting it
trying
for
to avoid an R
stun.
rating.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, like there's this was just like a this was the first proto Star Wars. This was
yeah,
like him just feeling out what this series and franchise is going to be. So
exactly.
you know,
But still, it throughout all of the Star Wars mythos and everything, I still never seen a single freaking weapon that did what they did to Aunt Peru and Uncle Owen.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, unless you like think it's like go into the headcanon that Boba Fett was there on Tatooine and killed Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen and
we
like
haven't reached the holiday
scorched
special
them.
to cover that yet, but
Yeah.
to
Uh,
cover that character. But yeah, the only thing I could think of in science fiction that had it was something like that, where flesh and muscle were taken off the bone, was Predator. So it's like, did a Predator swing on by and sprayed the little thing, and like all the meat and everything just fell right off the bone, and it's just like
it,
charred?
it actually reminds me more of Mars Attacks when the little weapons
Oh,
like incinerate them and just leave the skeletons and they're
yeah.
all green or
They
red from the
it,
weapons.
it's that photo freeze moment. It's like, ugh, and then like
Yeah.
bam, they're, yeah. Oh, that man, that's a movie I haven't seen in a while. I definitely got to go revisit that one.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so we lost what's left of the family. Uh, Luke denying to go to Alderaan is more of the refusal of the call. So our call to adventure and refusal of the call happened very much back to back. sometimes there's like a little bit of space in some stories when that pops up. But this part right here just solved itself so quick. It's like, I can't go with you. What about my aunt and uncle? And then he goes back home to try to make sure that they're safe, and they're charred, cooked to the bone. And it's like, okay, it's like, you don't have the moisture farm in the family anymore. What's holding you back, Luke? And what does he do? He goes with Obi.
You
Do
see
you
the
want to sit there
resolve in
and
his eyes, like they
yes,
murdered my family. I gotta do right by them and get justice for them.
which is like really the catalyst to any freaking Western film ever. My loved ones have been killed, and now I'm a do them justice. That's Once Upon a Time in the West by Sergio Leone, a film that hopefully we'll maybe cover later on. But Chris, you want to sit there and take us on to what happens next?
Uh, he returns to Obi-Wan, and he are burying they're burying the Jawas and burning them, and he's like, "I've decided to come with you to Alderaan," and they make their way to Mos Eisley.
Yeah, I was
That's
like,
where
you want
they
to kind of
go.
continue that?
Oh, I
Yeah, is that
mean,
where you
yeah,
want to?
they go to the Mos Eisley to find a pilot and a ship that will take them to Alderaan, and while that's going on, we get the torture scene with Leia, and let's see, we go to the cantina, meet
Yeah.
Han
So okay,
Solo.
I was a little premature, but yeah, Grand Moff Tarkin and Vader have Leia being tortured.
Yeah,
You know, and in the script, it does have Leia screams in agony, where the finished product actually cuts to her. Like it is in the finished product of the film, but
yeah.
they don't show the whole actual machine. Um, I think they show it in Empire or in Return of the Jedi. I do know they showed the torture device. Uh, and then in the sequel trilogy, you got an upgrade version of that.
I don't remember.
Because in Return of the Jedi, when we're in Jabba's palace, the one machine that's torturing all the robots,
Yeah,
that's essentially the same thing of what Vader was using, if I believe right.
I mean, I
That was the
remember
same
the
one.
little. It's just like a little orb thing with a little giant needle that they were emphasizing was gonna make her tell the truth or torment her.
Yeah, but also too, I think in Empire as well, it's the same machine that they used on Han.
Uh, I mean, I
When
remember
they're
them
on
strapping him
Bespin.
to a table and like
Yeah, yeah,
shocking
and
him, but I think it was different.
was it?
I think so.
Oh, great! Now I gotta go rewatch that movie before we
I
do the
mean,
next
I don't remember
before we
seeing
do
a
the next show.
floating droid torturing him, but I mean,
Exactly.
that,
But most of the stuff was taken off screen because they're trying to keep themselves from going to the R rating. It's already a war picture replacing guns and blood with
you talk about. We get the scene with uh, Vader meeting with the generals and the Grand Moff Tarkin and on the Death Star, and they're talking about how he lost the plans and how he is going to get them back. And he's like, one of the generals is like, "We don't need to worry about it. This is the ultimate battle station in the galaxy."
and then they go and they one of them pokes fun at Vader's belief
Religion.
in the Force
Yep.
and everything, which I do believe. I think it is this film, or I think it starts in Empire Strikes Back, where we have the Darth Vader kill count, because Darth Vader kills a lot of Imperial guys, especially in Empire, which we'll cover in the on Monday. We'll be covering that on Monday. But yeah, so I think this is the start where Vader starts killing off the Imperial guys, because they just flat out do not show him no respect whatsoever. Like
Yeah.
he is choking them out left and right, and
Well, I think it's more of like, do your job or else. Like if you fail, there is no second chances because we we're talking about Empire and the Death Star's been just blown up. Like the
yeah.
greatest crown achievement of the Empire is
But even then, he
destroyed.
was still kind of like that guy to begin. He was just a tough ass boss. That's just what it was. He didn't take failure for anything, which of course, name any boss that wants that. But I don't know any other bosses that are getting away with choking their employees and then saying, bring in the next guy to fill in his shoes, you
Yeah.
know, compared to what, maybe that's what the Academy is for. Maybe they take seminars on, how to tighten your neck when being choked by Darth Vader. And,
Then we go to that
it,
Family Guy
it,
skit. Or
yeah,
no, Robot Chicken, where like you just have to grab another piece of uh, hair or clothing, put it on you, and then go back into the room because Darth Vader believes he's able to kill you with his mind, but he's not really. So we're just, but he does have a deadly lightsaber that can definitely chop you in half with. So just act dead and then come back later as a different person.
I was thinking the same thing with SNL when they had Kylo Ren come in as like the secret, the parody of the whole boss like goes
The
undercover as an
undercover
employee.
boss, yeah,
Yeah, and it's the same thing like with Vader. It's like Kylo Ren's over here. It's like they respect me and they fear me, and then like he's like talking about it's all like yeah, like that guy Kylo Ren. It's pretty cool, huh? He's like Kylo Ren. No, that guy sucks, and then it's like kind of makes you wonder if that's how the rest of the Empire saw Vader too. It's like Kylo wasn't that far away from Vader in a sense of like probably the rest of the Empire like did not like him whatsoever.
yeah.
They're like give us Hux or Tarkin. We'll handle those. We can talk with those guys, but you keep them fucking evil space wizards out. You know. Um, but uh, but yeah. So we have this whole meeting. We're introduced to Grand Moff Tarkin. Leia gets tortured. Vader chokes out a guy. He doesn't quite kill him yet, but he's making the guy learn his place. Um, and so Luke, Obi-Wan, and the droids are in Mos Eisley. We've kind of had like these little intercuts in between the scene. Uh, and this is like a scene where the script is actually kind of different from the final piece because it's the whole Luke gets into a fight, where he's falling across the table and
Yeah.
Obi-Wan takes care of the three bandits. I don't remember there being a bat guy because there's like a little bat dude that's with the pig nose and then the other guy with the messed up eye. Uh, they sit there say it's a bat, and I've had people sit there and tell me that there is a bat alien in there. It's like I do not remember that. I just remember there was only two guys shot for that scene.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, like they do like have like the original. I think had a lot more like different aliens in the bar, and like a lot
yeah,
of them were just like recycled alien looking creatures from other sci-fi movies.
yeah.
But like, I mean, that's just Lucas adding stuff in there to like give you an
It's
atmosphere.
great filmmaking to sit there and reuse old props and everything. That's nothing new, and
Yeah.
everything. But uh, again, this script goes off and describes very very well with how these aliens look. They're like I know that Rick Baker probably doesn't really have the best. Um, what was it? Rick Baker didn't like the way that um, what is it? How the aliens looked, but like for this script though, it's like he described them pretty well. I'm trying to sit there and look at what it is. A large multi-eyed creature gives Luke a rough shove. I don't think that's quite it, but there is like a moment in which Luke is getting stared down by three guys. Um, okay, it's an even smaller rodent-like beast join the belligerent monstrosity. It's like a short, grubby human and an even smaller rodent.
Yeah.
But people sat there say bat, and it's like I don't remember that guy. So I guess Lucas couldn't find a rat, or I guess he just got edited out for the purposes of we don't really want
Yeah.
to sit there and hire another actor to be in a suit or a puppeteer. So
Two weird looking guys is enough, you know.
yeah, for the budget at least. And again, this was like maybe you would say at the time maybe a shoestring budget still, because especially with what they were doing.
Yeah.
Um, so Lucas was this draft right here wasn't really too much writing on a strict budget, but I would love to sit there and see what was the final version of this script to sit there and see, probably Lucas after he got his money. And it's like, okay, what do I take away? Because yeah, reading this, it'd probably take a little bit more money to make this film. So yeah, so there is the bar fight, because anytime that you have a bar with some aliens in it and some kick-ass cool looking people, you gotta have a bar fight. It's legit the rules. It's not just the rules um in westerns, but it's just the rules in any action film. If there's a bar scene, there has to be a punch thrown and there has to be some kind of mayhem going on, and um, that's exactly what we got. To me, this is a trope that never gets old. It's like I enjoy it so much. But yeah, Luke gets into the fight. Obi-Wan takes care of him. He scares off the bad guys, and Chewie leads Luke and Obi-Wan to their ship, and uh, they make the whole deal with Han, and yeah, that's where we get Han
On
versus Greedo. There's so much that happens here, and it kind of feels like I'm tripping a little bit, because even before all this, when the droids come in with them, the bartender is like, I don't know, droidist and everything. He's like, we don't serve them here, and it's like, wow, that's very droidist of him, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
I,
they're droids. He doesn't want them crowding up the bar because they don't even pay. There's nothing for
yeah,
them to pay and buy for. Like why have them in there crowding the bar?
or maybe he heard the news about Uncle Owen and Peru. It's like, oh, like those look like the same droids that guy bought. I don't need my patrons getting
I
turned
mean,
into burnt spooky skeletons.
I,
So,
I doubt it's that. I
yeah,
get
I
the
know,
more
I know.
feeling it's like it's
Yeah,
just this
it's a
is a dangerous
stretch.
town. Like
Yeah,
he doesn't give a shit about anyone who doesn't who isn't a paying patron. That's
exactly. and
what it
and
is.
and and when we have it where Han makes the whole deal, I think he's getting paid half up front, and then he's getting the other half, once they reach Alderaan, because they need to ride to Alderaan, and Han's the only guy that's going to be able to get him out there past the Empire who is there. But Han's got some problems of his own. He's got a debt he's got to pay off, and Greedo's come to collect not the money, but Han's head. So in typical, Western fashion, uh, he pops a cap in him.
Hmm.
Han shot first. And I think it was later edited on that they actually had a Greedo popped off a shot first, but Han's
Yeah.
laser bolt was the lucky shot that got him.
That scene has been edited like 5 or 6 times, and I think the definitive version they have now on Disney Plus is Greedo says something that indicates he's gonna kill Han no matter what, and Han
Yeah,
shoots him before he can get a shot off. So like Han technically shoots first, and so it's
it's almost
more
like a reactionary
justified.
shot of being shot, like Greedo. You know,
Yeah.
that was
So
my little sound effect, folks. I don't know if you heard it.
pew pew.
Pew pew.
it it's justified in this final version, but like in the original, he just straight up shoots Greedo and kills him, which is
Yeah,
not kosher apparently for the kids. But hey,
guy
I
comes into a bar with a gun saying, I'm
yeah,
gonna kill you so I can get paid by a giant slug. It's like, look, it's like we already lost the family friendly. Have they not seen what happened to Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru? I don't think that's family friendly,
I mean, you
to
get the
today's
idea.
standards.
This is a lawless planet for the most
Yeah,
part. Like
yeah.
there's no like
There's no Karens
it
to uphold the law,
like you see the empires there, but like have they really only been there only to look for the droids? Because that's the sense I'm getting. And
Yeah,
in the canon this is an outer world system, and a lot of unless
yeah.
you're in the core worlds, like they
Hmm.
don't give a crap about what's going
Well,
on the outside.
it reminds me of another Clint Eastwood Western. Because yeah, folks, I'm going to mention Westerns. I love Westerns, and this film is a Western. It's a Western war picture, kinda. It's a mix of both, with your space elements. But and the first spaghetti Western film, I'm trying to remember what his name is. Um, it's uh, not a few dollars more, a fistful of dollars.
Blondie.
Where, yeah, Blondie, where he kind of comes into this town. It's lawless, even though there is a sheriff. There is a family of lawmen, but they only do what they want to do. It's like no one can stop them, but they can go and they can do whatever they want. And then you have the banditos that keep you know coming over, starting shit, and there's they're gonna steal like this big gold thing, and I think the gold's supposed to be going through the bank that family is supposed to safeguard. and that family's like already had, so that's how I look at this film. The Empire stormtroopers are essentially the lawmen, but they're not faithfully law. They're law to themselves. Any law broken against them, they're going to arrest you. But if you did it to someone else, they don't care unless they're going to get a cut of whatever. Like, like if Han owes money to Jabba and they bring him in, the Empire's going to expect, you know at least a cut of whatever the money is, or probably expect it all.
And
Um, they'll
that's
probably actually want more since Jabba's is an underground crime lord, so they're like, I know you got more than this. It's like he's worth
that's
more.
emphasized in the next scene when Han meets up with Jabba, and they're looking out for him outside the Falcon. Which honestly, man, I just really wish they had kept that out, because like the whole wonky CGI Jabba and
Yeah,
Han talking to him, like it kind of just it's another thing that kind of throws off the pacing for me because
I I saw the original someone uploaded on YouTube. I saw the original one, and even if you would have looked at it at high def, I kind of understood why they did CGI. But it's like at the same time, it's like I would have kept it there because there's so many films of that time that you could definitely tell such and such was practical compared to CGI, but you could still love and appreciate it a little bit more. Of like they went that out there, and it may have aged somewhat well, but like today, not many people find that fascinating. It's something that should have stuck. I think that this has to be the number one film right next to Blade Runner that has had so many cuts, so many re edits, so many extra special effects. Um, it's got to be the number one movie of that. I don't know any other film that has been altered in so many different fashions.
maybe Apocalypse Now. I know there's like four different cuts of that movie, but like
Yeah, but I think there's six cuts of Blade Runner, so that's why I didn't mention Apocalypse Now. I
yeah,
think there's five or six cuts of Blade Runner. Um, this
but like
cut, I think George Lucas probably cut it every 10 freaking years and added whatever he could.
yeah,
Like I
well,
understood what he wanted. He wanted a world flourish full of these wonderful creatures, and he
yeah,
just didn't have the technology for it. So he had to make it someone else's headache and say, I want this, this, and this here. So you guys make it all look good and look at like it was kind of shot still back in 77
yeah.
or 76, my bad.
But
Uh,
like what bugs me about the whole Jabba thing is like Jabba's there looking for Han, and Han confronts him, and he tells us everything we already know. We know Han
yeah.
owes money to Jabba. We know Jabba sent Greedo to kill him, to get the money, and he chastises him for killing Greedo. And like, there's really nothing new that's added to
Yeah.
the whole story. Like everything we
You could
know,
have just cut that out and then
yeah,
just had it immediately that or you could have actually just sat there and had it that maybe well, I don't know. I think you have to set the cut out because you can easily just have it where the bar patron, the bartender got the stormtroopers got the Empire, because of what happened to Greedo.
yeah,
Like it may not have been a loud shot, but I'm pretty sure that bartender was keeping an eye on everyone that Luke and Obi-Wan were walking and associating with. And I'm pretty sure after they left with Chewie, he kept an eye on Han to figure out what shady business is going on in my establishment. So
yeah.
you could have had that cut out. That could have been one scene that probably could have been cut out, but
The
you know,
freaking
um,
walking on the tail part, the awkward like
yeah,
CGIing Han over the thing, and
I stepped over and he's
Jabba
like,
being like,
ooh.
"Arr!" Like you stepped on my tail, like bro, you just stepped on the most powerful slug's tail on this planet, surrounded by all of his goons. Like I feel like that's a little overboard, I don't
Yeah,
know, but
but also too, that's something Solo would have done to begin with.
yeah,
So Solo,
eh,
like no matter what, he's been that one guy that if you think there's something you shouldn't be doing, Han's gonna do it. You know, and it's kind of, well, I don't know. I don't think you can compare that to Indiana Jones because I think Indiana Jones was a little bit more wiser. You know,
oh
um,
yeah, he's a school teacher.
he was a little bit more calculated with what he pissed off and who he pissed off and how he did it.
Yeah,
Where Solo is more of the like, you know who is gonna stop me, and it's like I got my nice fancy laser pistol, I got my space werewolf. It's like with and he has a space crossbow and an awesome roar, it's like, who's gonna really stop me? And
Yeah.
then Empire Strikes Back came, and that's when we realized he's not really untouchable all the way through. But I digress. So yeah, um, Greedo is dead. Luke, Obi-Wan, and the droids, before they actually head out onto there is another deleted scene where Luke is selling off the speeder just to pay for the upfront.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of sit there seems like a bum.
Like
He,
money
he, he,
wise,
he-
like he should have had
yeah,
money to.
yeah. It's like, where's this money you promised Han? It's like, oh, that's a good thing. You're going to sell your speeder. It's like, wait, why am I selling my shit off? It's like, well, you
Well,
know,
he's not coming back to this planet anyways. Like
but like also at the same time, it's all like, you're telling me that, when Chewie isn't looking, that Obi-Wan couldn't have done the mind trick, and like Solo's like, oh yes, I will. And it would have made it even more funnier if, with Han saying, yeah, no, I don't believe in any of that, magic trick stuff. And it's like, dude, that shit just worked on you like not too
yeah,
long ago. It's how you're here. And
feel like that would
I
have
know,
been a little
I know. I'm pretty
distracting,
sure the
I
people
guess.
listening to this, it's all like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. And it's all like, I know it's bullshit. But come on. It's all like, Obi-Wan didn't have the money that he promised. So he has this poor kid
Yeah.
hawking his freaking speeder that he was so proud to own. And it's like, but also, too, it's supposed to be Luke's character finally giving up even the material stuff of his homeworld. Not only has he lost his family now, it's like this is his ultimate lock in. It's like, I don't have no mode of transportation. I have no home. I have no family. That's it. I'm not coming back to this rock. Two
Yep.
movies later. But that's for another episode. So yeah, Luke sells it off. He was able to sit there and get enough money to pay to pay for the ride. And yeah, Han has that run in with Jabba. They try to square up the deal, and just like that, that's when the stormtroopers come in. Our heroes are launching off into space, and then they go into the hyperspace and they flee the Imperial destroyer.
Yep.
And that actually wraps up the first act of the story. This is a 155-page script, 156 if you count the title page, but it's 155, and we had just left Tatooine at page 60, which really goes to show you that usually most first acts are about 30 to 35 pages long. So for the fact that Act 1 here is like 60 pages, it's mind-blowing. Um, it's not the first time, because uh, you go through halfway through the runtime of Rocky all in the first act. He doesn't get his call to adventure until halfway through the film.
Yeah.
So again, it's something very much. I don't know. I look at it as a very big thing as a writer, that George Lucas took his time with this. He very much took his time crafting this world. We already, without really seeing much of Vader, we kind of already get the sense of what's going to happen if they fail in their mission, because they have this kind of character walking about, torturing a princess, and mowing down stormtroopers, and even choking his own kind, choking the Empire. It's like, this guy gives no shit. He's kind of like the Empire version of Han. He can do whatever he wants, and no one's going to stop him. And to me, I still actually think that even though this is pretty long for a first act, it's not that bad, because it makes the second act breeze by completely. I think the second act is actually the shortest part of this story. Uh, there's so much setup, and with how it's all set up, it just makes the second act going into this so much more faster and so much more fun.
Yeah.
So we're going in to the Death Star. We got Tarkin giving Leia one last chance to tell him where the rebel base is. She kind of gives him the answers, Dantooine, or Dantooine. Again, Lucas isn't really all good with names, because we just got off of Tatooine. Now we're on Dantooine now. Tarkin doesn't believe her. And what does the old dude do? He blows up her home. This is
Yeah.
got to be my favorite. Right next to Vader, he's my favorite villain. I love Tarkin. I hated that Tarkin died in the Death Star, and we didn't get no more of him, because I think Peter Cushing does really great in the short time that he does with this character. Um, and he doesn't get what he wants. What he does, he blows up a fucking planet.
You didn't like
Like,
his Did you enjoy his resurrection in Rogue One?
I actually did not think that was that too much of a bad CGI job. Mostly because the guy already looked very much like him,
Yeah,
and they kind of did the same thing with Halloween Kills with the guy who played Loomis in the Halloween flashbacks,
yeah.
where the guy looked almost exactly like him, and they only had to do a little bit of CGI work to make him actually look like Loomis.
That was actually
Uh,
prosthetics. Like they actually
that's
like
right. That's right. That's
they
right.
put
That's right.
prosthetics on him. But
My bad.
like,
Thank you so much for. But
yeah,
yeah, I
I mean,
wasn't torn away from the CGI of Tarkin and Rogue One. It
yeah.
looked like him. You
I
know,
honestly like when it comes to that, like I didn't see much of it, like a crazy, like, oh, this isn't real. Like
I
he
think
looked
maybe
like
there were some
Tarkin
line
talking,
deliveries.
you know,
Yeah, there were
and
some line deliveries that just didn't feel like Tarkin. But at the same time, you're talking at such an iconic actor of Peter Cushing's caliber.
yeah,
No one can freaking cover that.
yeah. And I know the actor had already like kind of done stuff in place of Cushing before, but I don't remember when. I know like that's why they hired him though, like because he's got the same
Really?
build and like has the same mannerisms and he's practiced. But
Was it like a short film he did and he just looked like Tarkin, or?
I don't remember, but I know like I know he was like a theater actor or something. It's been a minute since I like kept,
Well, Cushing was a theater actor as well, if I
yeah,
remember correctly. So they probably had similar backgrounds. And since he already kind of looked like the guy, they're like, dude, this is the perfect stand in. We
yeah,
don't have to do a whole lot of CGI. We don't have to freaking mark no damn tape on where you got to walk near the invisible, Peter Cushing. It's like, no, he's right there. Just
yeah.
do a little facial work. And there you go. Now,
And
see,
that
I don't mind that. I don't mind that, especially if the family signs off on it,
yeah,
of like, yeah, we can do this. I have no problem with that. That's fine by me.
yeah,
But for um yeah, like, I have no problem with that. But yeah, I still think Tarkin's one of my favorite. He is one of my favorite villains in the whole Star Wars universe, next to Vader himself, the most horrible dad in the galaxy.
yeah.
And I actually like Darth Maul for the short time. Didn't really kind of care too much for the Clone Wars stuff, but for the
Really?
movie stuff,
That's where he
yeah,
shined, man.
I know. There are like some people like, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like, it's kind of almost like the same thing with the Darth Vader thing when they did the prequels, and you kind of got to see who Vader was as Anakin,
Yeah,
and then it kind of takes away a little bit of that mystique, and it's all like, I kind of like the idea that no one knew where the hell this guy came from, and they didn't know what happened to him except for Obi-Wan. That's it. It's just a character so surrounded in mystique.
yeah,
And it was kind of the same thing when and I think it was Book of Boba Fett where they brought in the gunslinger alien. First time I saw him, I was like, "Oh, this is such a cool character design." And then when I found out he was in, I think he was in Clone Wars. Yeah,
yeah. He was in Clone Wars and he's in
I think I skipped a couple of
Bad
seasons where he
Batch.
was at because I only followed the last couple of seasons of Clone Wars, leading up to the Bad Batch.
Oh yeah, you definitely missed him
Um,
then because he's introduced I think in
yeah,
season two.
I was told by people, it's like he's far better in the Clone Wars, and it's like, well, you know what, I like, because it looked mostly prosthetic. I was like, I like this look. I really
Well,
kind of.
yeah, like the prosthetic I think translated fine, but like just Book of Boba Fett was kind of just bad anyways. You know, like
It's
usually the
Mandalorian
case.
2.5. That's what everyone calls
Yeah,
it. It's Mandalorian 2.5.
yeah.
It's
I mean, the
I
best
think it's like
episodes
what,
were the Mandalorian episodes, but
very
like
much.
that's just the case with a lot of the Disney Plus stuff. Like
My,
all
my
their
my issue
shows are
though
bad.
with Boba Fett's story thing was they kept doing every episode where here's a flashback to when he was with the Raiders, and it's like, why don't you just do a whole entire episode of this? It's like we keep coming back to it. It's
Yeah,
like, quit giving us 4 episodes back to back of his stuff with the Tusken Raiders. It's like, make a movie out of it. That's what you should have done. Made a movie out of it.
yeah.
Made a
Well,
movie on how did he get back from crawling out of the Starlight Pit, and how did he come up confront the Mandalorian, to get his armor back from the sheriff. You know,
I
it's
mean,
like.
that's a whole that's a whole different thing. It's a whole
Yeah,
another can of worms, man.
that's a whole another episode. We're trailing off again on a
Yeah,
whole another episode.
like we
But
can talk about how crappy Disney Plus stuff is later.
exactly. Probably that's probably what next year's May the 4th episode would be. It's all the kind of errors that Disney has done with the Star Wars universe. So yeah, Tarkin blows up the planet, and while our heroes are on the way to Alderaan, they exit hyperspace. But before that, Obi-Wan did feel a disturbance in the Force, as in millions of people cried out in agony. I think that was the line,
Yeah,
sort of. Uh,
and it was suddenly
and when they come out of
silenced.
hyperspace, they're in an asteroid field, and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" And everything. We kind of already know what's going on, you know. For me, I kind of sat there and thought for like a beam such as the Death Star, I wouldn't even think that they would have allowed that much debris. But then again, we are thinking of a planet, and it's not really the planet destroyer from the sequel trilogy. It's not that powerful, but it was still powerful enough to disrupt the core of any planet and make it blow up. Um, so they're trying to evade the asteroids, and in doing so, um, this is right when Luke is starting to get his training. Correct, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this is before they like exit hyperspace. Like Luke is training with the uh, blaster,
Correct,
the
correct.
little drone thing, and
Yeah,
he's doing the blast shield down and not using his eyes and trusting the
he,
force.
he's already being trained into the ways of the Jedi through Obi-Wan, and then they exit out. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I do apologize, but yeah. So they go, they get captured in a tractor beam by the Death Star, and they're being dragged up. And the moment that the stormtroopers are coming up, they just beat the hell out of them. So what they do, they beat the hell out of them, and kind of an old classic comedy, which I kind of like some of the humor that they do with
Yeah, I mean,
Han
they kick
in
their
this.
ass off screen and then like uh, just like, hey, I can't hear
Spaceballs
you.
did it better, but like Spaceballs did it better, but that was a parody of Star Wars for those who didn't know. But yeah, they go, they beat the hell out of them. I guess they left them on the ship.
Hmm.
That's a question I may have to ask you for when we wrap up the breakdown is what happened to those soldiers aboard the Millennium Falcon?
Well,
Because they just didn't leave their bodies out there.
I mean, I think they killed them and took their armor and then threw them in wherever like they were hiding on the ship, and like just dealt with that shit later after the movie, or like they just had prisoners for the rebel
Put
base
it
once
like in a
they
little
got back.
pod and just like kick them out, or
Yeah,
like a garbage chute, but for like hopefully it's a bigger pact.
yeah.
Where yeah, uh,
Well, yeah,
that's fucked up.
it's
That is
something
fucked up.
it's something
I
never
just thought
really
they knocked him out.
addressed.
I didn't think that they killed him. I thought they just like they showed because the armor isn't all that tough. So
Yeah,
chances are, it's like all you have to do is just get up right behind him, just right, and have Chewie just take his fist and just clock them.
yeah.
They're out. Hopefully that's what happened. Hopefully these poor soldiers who are only doing their job, didn't get killed by Chewie and all that. But either way, our heroes go.
I'm
They
an
take their
asshole. I want them
uniforms.
dead.
You heard it here from Chris, folks.
Mhm.
They beat up the stormtroopers. They take the uniform and they surmise a plan on how the hell are they going to get out of this shit station. Um, and Obi-Wan's over here is like, I'm going to disable the tractor beam, and uh, going through the security stuff. Luke actually does find Leia. They find Leia in the containment area
Mhm.
where she's being held prisoner, and I think even Luke before then, I think he felt the presence of Leia. If I think this is when its force powers really kind of start to, I wouldn't say blossom, but they start to
Do you
kind
mean
of
like
fade in.
in the script where he's? Do you think he's? I sense Leia down this hall in this room or something, or
Yeah, because it's um, like obviously to us we know that Luke has the force, and it's I'm trying to find it. Uh, I actually cannot freaking find it, but he has a feeling, and then whenever they go into the security terminal, they end up finding uh it's I think it's that it's Leia's there. Like he knows that Leia's there. They go and they travel. They make their way into the containment, kind of almost like the center warden area where they could figure out what room Leia was in.
Yeah.
And it was more of Luke's hunch. It's a hunch, but really it's the Force. The Force, since he's starting to do the training, it's starting to become a thing for him that he goes into the room, he finds her on the camera after they wasted another pair of stormtroopers, and yeah, like that's just pretty much it. It's going
You
on a
mean
hunch. Pretend,
like
huh?
are you talking about like when they get up there and they like are in the prison cells
Yeah.
talking to the thing? I mean like
Well, when they're in the prison cells, they see her on the monitor. Sorry, folks, if we're getting like a little confusing. I'm running on very little sleep,
I
but
I'm looking at the script and just Luke stops in front of one of the cells and blasts the doors with the blaster. The smoke clears. Luke sees the dazzling young princess senator. I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
Uh,
but also too they were supposed to sit there and take Chewie to containment to begin with
yeah,
because they landed there, so they were already kind of going through her. But I'm pretty sure Luke had a hunch that Leia was there, and just with them being in security and taking out the security guards, which were really I think just one Imperial worker and I think one stormtrooper. That's when they checked on the monitors, and then of course they got the iconic scene where Han's not horrible. I can't speak. He's horrible. He's horrible with small talk, and it's like, oh yeah, everything's nice, everything's clear. Like,
how
how
are
are
you?
you?
Yeah,
And I really kind of wish that maybe we need to make a short film of that where it's small talk the Empire way. It's like, what do the troopers really talk about? They're standing around all day. They have to have something interesting,
you're talking
you
about
know.
college humor's troopers right there.
Yeah, it's all like it's like, hey, Dave. He's like, Dave, yeah, Dave from whatever quadrant. He's like, didn't he get choked by Vader last week? It's like, yeah, yeah, it's like I miss Dave, something like that. It's like they have to have they have to have that normal grounding conversation of it's all like, oh, what are you gonna do after your shift? And it's like, oh, I don't know. I just probably go down to my bunk. There's nothing to do on the Death Star. There's not a bowling alley. There's not a Mall of America there. They just
Yeah,
go off the shifts. It's like
no, you know
it's like
troopers, right? Like you know the college humor skit show, right?
no,
What?
no.
You're
Again,
describing you're describing troopers.
oh, am I?
Yeah,
I'm describing something I've never even seen before. Holy
like
hell!
yeah, it's college humor's little sketch series. I don't know if I'd have to find it and send it to you, but like
I
yeah,
think the only
you're
college
describing.
humor video I saw was the one where Farrell is getting cussed at by the landlord at the child. Or I think that's Funny or Die.
I
It's
think
one of
that's Funny
those.
or Die. Yeah, but
It's one of those. But anyway, they found the princess. They found the princess in the Death Star. So Luke goes to save her, and the stormtroopers are already coming because Han sucks at small talk, and he fired a blast right into the speaker system.
yeah,
And this goes on to a long, lengthy chase all over the Death Star.
yeah,
Uh, Luke and Leia get well, hold on, before you even get there, they actually go through the trash chute because
yep.
the stormtroopers have them closed down. Leia takes command of all of this. It's two men and a Wookiee can't form a plan to get out. So what does the princess do? She shoots um, a way out through the chute, and they go through the trash.
Mhm.
And even then, you have a nice creepy alien. For one, I want to sit there and know, is that meant just to eat biodegradable stuff?
Is it eating the biodegradable stuff?
I guess.
I don't
Like,
know.
I'm pretty sure a stormtrooper is like throwing like an apple or an orange down there.
I
You
mean,
know,
I'm
it's
assuming it was
living
some
down there. Yeah,
parasite that grew up in feeded on the fed on the
but
trash.
but I'm pretty sure the trash compactor squeezes all the time. So is this like a boneless creature where
uh,
it's like, you know, it's made of the same jelly as like those little slappy hand things that you used to get when you put like 50 cents in a little crank machine, and you
Yeah.
have the little slap hand. You just squeeze it and just stretches out.
I mean, perhaps, but like you always get, you also get the sense that like it can just escape anywhere else too, because like it
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. All you get is a little
Yeah,
eyeball
yeah,
and
it
everything,
lets Luke
and
go whenever the trash compactor starts firing up, so
yeah.
it can
So,
escape.
which to me, I think right next to Han and Chewie and Luke knocking the shit out of the stormtroopers to steal their uniform, the whole scene where it's 3PO and R2 are listening to their friends get squashed,
Mhm.
and they're all like, "Oh my god, what do we do?" It's like 3PO, help us, and they're getting pushed in there, and they're gonna get ready to get crushed, and it's like, oh my god, what the hell are you doing, 3PO? Get off your freaking ass and freaking help them, and they're screaming, and they're screaming and they're cheering don't sound all that different. It still sounds like terror, because when R2 is able to hack into the Death Star and is able to stop the trash compactor from turning our heroes into mush with some weird unidentified parasite monster thing lurking in the water. Um, Again, that makes me fearful to even go down to the sewers. If Pennywise hasn't induced this much fear, this thing does, because it
Shouldn't be
looked like
going to
something
the
that would live
sewers
in a
at
sewer.
all.
Exactly.
What are you
so
doing, man? There's nothing down there for you.
so they get free, and the droids are still pretty much closer to they're more closer towards the Millennium Falcon, because I think they're just like in one little room next door. The stormtroopers have discovered them, and they're trying to hide out, and Luke and Leia and all them are trying to sit there and figure out a way on how to get out. Like, they're just trying to find their way back to the ship. We have this long and gross chase scene that Han and Chewie. I was about to say Louis. Don't ask who the hell Louis is. Um, they break off and they're chasing these stormtroopers, and then there's more stormtroopers chasing them back. It's almost like a Scooby Doo chase scene. That's kind of like the best way to describe this, right?
Yeah,
Without
I
getting
mean,
it too
well, I
crazy. It's a
mean,
Scooby Doo chase scene.
I wouldn't go that cartoony, but yeah, I mean, they're just getting chased, and they have
Yeah.
to split up, and they Luke and Leia get trapped at the chasm. They have to zip line across for, and
And before that, Leia
yeah,
puts a kiss on Luke.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
I made a note earlier whenever Luke is in rescuing Leia from the prison cell row, and Lucas writes something along the lines of "He's stunned by her beauty," and I'm just like thinking, "That's your sister, bro." Like another point of Lucas did not plan out them being siblings this early on.
Well, what was it that Lois said in the Star Wars thing, that Alderon's like the something of the galaxy,
The Alabama or something. Or,
something like that.
yeah.
So yeah, we have the, and I know you don't want to sit there and say it's too much of a that's more cartoonish chase, but we did have Han with this weird battle cry charge after two of them, and then it's his reaction of like, oh shit, and then he goes back and
Yeah,
he's
he
shouting back at Chewie,
finds
run, and there's like, they chased two, and I think they found eight more that chased after them.
well,
uh
I think in the early version it was just a few, but like in the
y-
final version, he comes upon a hangar full of stormtroopers, like 100 of
yeah,
them. Just oh crap! And then he shoots one and runs off.
it yeah, it's the perfect reaction shot of like, yeah, I'm scaring these guys who are supposed to be the big baddies, and I'm scaring them off, and they're like, it's like, I'm not getting paid enough for this crap. And the moment that they go and they meet, the hangar with the other ones, they just turn around and they're like, we're armed even more. There's more of us than there are of you. And um, I kind of look at that as cartoony, but not too cartoony. um, so yeah, our heroes, they are split up, but they do make their way back to the Millennium Falcon. And just when that is happening, Obi-Wan has already disabled the
the,
um,
the
the
tractor
tractor
beam.
beam, which again, for a man of his age, though, Obi-Wan has, like, the Obi-Wan series has stated, I think, what, he's got to be probably in his 50s by now, but he still looks pretty young. So by the time Sir Alec Guinness, who looks 60, it's like, I guess those years on Tatooine really put it on you.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, you
So
age
he's like
faster when you're
he's
stressed out.
he's able to shimmy around these huge things, and and he did some force stuff to to kind of deter the stormtroopers to keep going.
Mhm.
Um, but he's already disabled it. Our heroes have already made it back to the Millennium Falcon, but sadly, Darth Vader has confronted Obi-Wan. And it's so weird because I used to never hear uh uh Obi-Wan sit there and call him Darth, because in the script it's like Darth, and it's like, wait, what? It's like, I don't remember that, and I watched in the movie he does call him Darth.
Yeah,
So I don't know, there's something like when I read it, it's like, no, there, it can't be that right. Darth, that it sounds like he just called him Garth, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's just me, I'm a bit of a picky like reader when it comes through
like,
certain
are you saying
things.
you would prefer him not
I
say
would have
Darth?
just had what he called him Vader,
Well, I mean,
because I
Darth is like a title for the Sith, Darth Lord and stuff.
that is right.
I,
Well, also too, like none of the other Empire guys call him Darth Vader. I think they all call him Lord Vader.
yeah, well,
But that's also his status within the Empire.
yeah,
So it's like he carries two different statuses: one for Sith, um, one for the Empire. But yeah, I kept thinking that he kept saying Lord Vader,
yeah.
and it's like, so when I read that and then when I watched it, I was like, "There's no way in hell he called him Darth." And I hear it. It's like Darth, and it's like, God, fucking geeky ass name, and
Yeah, and like
it's like, at least call
knowing,
him Vader. I felt like calling him Vader would at least keep the tense, but also too, it's kind of also wonder why he never called him Anakin until you watch Obi-Wan, and then you kind of I was like, okay, it's like he's given up on calling out Anakin. It's Vader, no matter what, Vader or Darth.
I don't want to
Uh,
talk about Kenobi.
so
That's just
they get into their fight scene as the heroes are there. The stormtroopers are actually watching. It's almost like dinner in a show. They're like, oh, we're gonna watch these two Jedis battle. Like, you don't see this every day.
yeah.
uh I wonder if that's what Troopers covered as well. It's like, that would have been nice if they covered a scene where it's Obi-Wan and Vader fighting, and they're all like, it's like, you checking this shit out, man? And it's
I'll
like,
send you
it's,
like I'll find a playlist for you to watch so you can just
you're
binge
gonna
it
have to send
all.
that to me, because
Yeah,
now all these ideas that I want to do, I'm guaranteed they've done them.
they
They've
probably
done them
have.
all. They probably have. It's like Simpsons did it. Simpsons
Yeah.
did it all. So Obi-Wan goes and sacrifices himself the moment he sees Luke, and the moment he sees that everyone is off to the Millennium Falcon. They're getting ready to shoot off, and so Obi-Wan kind of gives up. It's like, you've lost. It's like, I become far more powerful than you are. Vader takes the swing, and all what's left is nothing but, I want to say, the lightsaber as well. Like, the lightsaber is just there with
Yeah, the
the
lightsaber and the
with the
ropes
cloak.
drop. Mhm.
He performed more wizard magic.
Yeah,
It's, and also too, in the script, folks, as you read along, they never refer to these things as lightsabers. I think they call them light sticks.
they do. What?
I think they never call them lightsabers. They mentioned it one time, I think, in Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, the name lightsaber, but in the action line, it's something totally different. Which I wasn't expecting for this script to have lightsaber, because again, all of the terminology, we're learning this. This is,
I
I
mean,
was not expect I was not
uh,
expecting, like, I wasn't expecting like what they do in Empire Strikes Back, like when they start doing the vehicles, that they actually do have like actual vehicle names, like the AT-AT
yeah.
and all that, the all terrain, something like that. It's all terrain
In
something.
in the script, uh, on scene 141, uh,
Do
Vader
they call it
steps
like?
into. It says it doesn't say lightsaber. It says Vader lights his saber, and then
Yeah,
also ignites his and steps slowly forward. So it doesn't say lightsaber, but
yeah,
it's he
because
just lights his sword.
this script, of course, they weren't thinking that this was going to blow up to be a huge franchise. They were just trying to hold on to this being their one and only goal. Let's at least get this movie out. So a lot of the terminology, not even Lucas had the terminology yet. Now when you build something like this world, there are writers rooms where they even build up the whole world, especially if it's going to be a TV show and it's set around something. Like, you have to know everything from what is the Force, and a full detail explanation of that, as well as the weapons and the races of whatever aliens that are going to be. You would have like a TV Bible.
Unless you
I
were
don't know how I
enlisting,
don't
you
know
just
how
phone it in.
often, like I don't know how often before Star Wars that there were TV Bibles for like Flash Gordon and stuff like that. I don't think that those existed. It was just whatever the screenwriter made up, and then they
I
went
mean,
with it.
I'm sure they did. Like they had to have like a through line for the characters
Yeah,
in the show. Like they
yeah,
had to have their
but
rules.
but nothing that, from my knowledge of finding online, I have not been able to find it. But in most modern day even just in television, if it's nothing as big as science fiction, there's always a TV Bible for something, especially if it's a show that deals with like Haven, Stephen King's Haven. I'm pretty sure there's a TV Bible for that to let you know what is every what is every business shop, what is whatever key person like in the story, where do they live, what street they live on, is
Is
it
that
on the corner of
the show that
something?
was on Sci-Fi?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It was loosely based off of the Colorado Kid, though I want to sit to say it was more inspired by the Colorado Kid, but that was one of the very um, pulpy suspense novels that King wrote.
Yeah.
Um, but I digress. Either way, uh, they didn't really. I think they were just now building the Bible, so I'm pretty sure by then, by Empire Strikes Back, even on the script they don't call it lightsaber, because I think the script for this was written for Empire was written in '78, because this is '76.
I
We're,
mean,
we're still focusing on
Ben
Star
also
Wars.
says this is your father's lightsaber in the dialogue. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's
but
there.
yeah, it's there, but it's not even, to me. I look at it as it's something of once it's in the action line, it's a part of the universe. Like, I'm pretty sure Lucas was just spitballing what this thing was. It's a saber. It has lightsaber. But again, a production, or not a production, but like a kind of Bible, to where, especially with ILM, where okay, we need to make this, and this. Is it a prop? Is it a special effect thing? Whatever. There wasn't so many special effects in this film outside of the Death Star, the Tie Fighters, and some of the aliens and the lightsaber. Of course, that was it. Um, we'll get more into that in the next episode. But they escape. Obi-Wan has sacrificed himself, but at the same time, too, it's Luke's not really dead. He's not dead, or not Luke. My bad.
I mean,
Obi
Ben,
Wan. Yeah,
Obi-Wan.
I, the coffee's running out of me, man. I am so sorry. uh,
You need to
so when
slow down.
when Vader is poking at what is the remains of Obi-Wan, Luke fires. They launch off, and yeah, they're on their way to our final act of the story. This again, Act Two. What was it that I mentioned? Act Two is only 50 pages. It's 10 pages less than the first act. But as you progress more throughout the script, you actually find out that the acts get shorter.
Yeah,
We start 60 pages and 50 and then 45. Uh, for good measure, for why it's 45 pages for your wrap up, because generally, I don't know, Chris, what is it like? I guess good judging number. Your your act two is always your biggest act, at least in
yeah.
most stories.
Because there's the
And
Act One is 30 pages, Act Two is 60 pages, and then Act Three is another 30 pages. One page for equals a minute, so you round it up at 2 hours, and that's
yeah,
usually how it's supposed to go.
yeah. But there are some benefits as long as you can keep it entertaining and it's very much engaging. Truth be honest, you can make it. Well, I don't know. I don't think you can have a 60-minute act one and get away with it. You know,
I mean, not
I,
nowadays.
yeah,
Early
uh,
on, like you could probably get away with whatever.
exactly. But what is it? So we're gonna open up Yavin 4. The final confrontation. This is the last 45 pages of the script from page 110 to 155. Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, the entire uh, not trope, troop, arrives at the Masasi outpost on the fourth moon of Yavin 4. Now, I've always been confused by this because I always thought Yavin 4 was the name of a planet. And in the video games, when I learned about this, they called the moon Yavin 4. I was like, so is the planet Yavin and the moon is just called Yavin 4? I am so confused.
I think the planet is Yavin 4, and it's the moon that the rebel base is on is just a moon of Yavin 4. Like I think,
Okay.
yeah, it's been like mixed up so much, people just don't bother like correcting it at this point.
They refer to the moon as Yavin 4,
Yeah,
so yeah.
but
Um,
I think
so
originally
they're
Lucas had a different idea for that.
yeah, it's something got kind of a little lost in translation. Like I understand it here in the script, but growing up, watching the movies and then playing the video games, there was obviously some confusion.
Mhm.
Uh, so our heroes have delivered the plans to the Death Star to the Rebel Alliance, and they're going to get ready to. They're going through the debriefing. They're getting ready. We're going to take out the big baddie. This is it. This is our road back. Um, the reward was that they got our heroes got freed, but at the cost of Obi-Wan's life. So now it's something I like to call it the three R's when it comes to Act One: the road back, the resurrection, and the return. Uh, Anytime that I'm sitting, I am breaking down the story, and I get to the third act. I've had people say, "Well, what do you do?" When it comes to structuring, it's like I do the three. Uh, I do the three R's. It's the road back, the return, the road back, the resurrection, the return. I'm fucking up my own damn story structure here. Um, so Yavin 4, they're going through the debriefing. Some people don't think that they can actually perform the act in which is needed with shooting a proton rocket into a small ventilation shaft that will lead to the core of the Death Star. That's legit what these people have been fighting tooth and nail to get
Mhm.
throughout this whole adventure, just to get some plans that say, yeah, if you shoot this rocket in this little vent, it's gonna go all the way down to the core, and it's gonna blow up the whole base. So I was hoping at least in the fourth draft, because this isn't the final draft. I was actually really hoping for something to happen, like something much more bigger than that. So I was a little let down at this spot, but also at the same time, I kind of know, okay, we're about to get to the big bad fight scene. Um, so let's proceed even more. Um, our rebels have been given their orders. Luke is actually joining up. This is we kind of get early on in the script. We get Luke definitely knows how to drive. He wants to be a pilot, very much like his father. And we see that with how he races across Tatooine on his speeder. So we had a little bit of taste of that. So now we're gonna sit there and we're gonna see him in the X-wing, get ready to um, kind of fulfill that journey. That it's to me, I think it's probably the biggest part of his adventure that he probably enjoys the most, even though it has more death scenes in it than most of his journey. But we get Biggs right before they set off as the Death Star is approaching Yavin 4, where they obviously they put a tracking chip on the Death Star, or not the Death Star, but the
The
Millennium
Millennium
Falcon.
Falcon.
So that's how that's how the Empire had found us. We're getting ready for it, and Biggs shows up. It's like, oh hey, it's Biggs. The friends are back together again.
Yep.
And I have a question for you once we wrap this up and we kind of do our final thoughts about Biggs, because I kind of feel like he was a huge missed opportunity in the script, especially with the final cut of the film. That I kind of sit there felt like maybe a little bit of Biggs really kind of highlighted Luke's life on Tatooine, and maybe we should have gotten a little bit more of that. But we'll talk about that later. They catch up. Han is looking to take his other half of the money so he can ditch, because he's not in it for the fight. He was in it for the paycheck. And obviously that kind of rubs Leia the wrong way. Kind of planting, I guess, the seed for the future relationship. I think it would be that scene. It's she's like, "Oh, you're only in for it for the money." And it's like, "I see." And it's all like, "Well, like, this is your battle." It's like I have nothing against them. I do my work. I keep to myself. That's more. Han is that one person that truly believes, even when the world's going to shit, it's like it's not my problem, And it's all like, you can help us. It's like it's not my problem, and
Yeah.
so that's just how Han is. Uh, we get the rebels out into space with the X wings and Y wings. Again, I love the way that how Lucas just very cleanly describes these things. It's not super detailed, but quite obviously, they're they're not pristine, perfect uh, ships. They're from the old world, I guess you would say.
Like, yeah,
From
they're battle worn already. They're
Yeah,
not.
they're battle worn. These were ships that you saw during the prequel era. So that's
Sort of.
what, Chris. That's got to be almost 40 years maybe ago.
Well, I mean, like, between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope is only like 20 years, 20 or so years.
Okay, yeah. So they're battle worn. They're not probably really all taken care of. They got a little bit of rust on them, but they can still, function. It's all what the rebels have. The rebels are legit throwing everything that they have at this final mission that hopefully will not stop the war, but it's the battle that the rebellion needs. This is what Luke also needs because he goes from the farm boy who had no life and he's always wanted to be up there, and it does kind of go back to that scene where Luke is looking up at the sky and seeing the rebel shuttle getting shot to hell by the Death Star, not the Death Star, the Star Destroyer. It's that view that I want to be up there, and now the boy is actually living it. uh the battle is thrown through so many different quick cuts to different members of the Red Five, as well as the Y Wing guys, the rebels down on Yavin 4. And to throw in a little bit of trivia into this, that scene was a total of 272 scenes that George Lucas wrote for this draft for the final battle. From scene 211 to 438, which again, it's pretty much like the last page of the script. It's it's nothing but quick cuts and quick cuts. We have Luke getting his feet wet with the rebel team. Uh, they kind of have the Empire at their throat for a little bit. They're going down to the trenches where the guns can't really hit them, and so they send out the not the X wings, the Tie fighters, and then later with Lord Vader. And Luke essentially, when he lines up the perfect shot, we've lost Biggs, we've lost the majority. I can't remember how many people survived, but it's a very small number.
I think it was just, I think it was just one little squad, like three or four other
Was
pilots.
it? It felt like more died. It felt because like when they went in, they had more pilots
Yeah,
on there, and only a handful of them. I think a handful of Y wings, which were the
unless
bombers.
like they showed only Luke surviving, and like that's the last one alive. But like
Was he the last one of Red Five? I thought one more member lived.
I don't remember. I need to take
I
another
know
watch at
Porkins
it. But
dies. The
yeah,
iconic
Parkins.
Porkins. He gets turned into pork rinds uh, through that
Yeah,
explosion. But yes, Luke is going through it. He's learning. He's learning more or less on the fly. Which again, I don't expect anyone in a galaxy far far away to have their first dogfight be against something that drastic. But he kind of he grew wings, and he learned to manipulate that. And when Vader was taking down everyone, and the last one to die was Biggs. We lost Biggs. He did his best to cover Luke as Luke was trying to line up that shot, and Luke was having trouble doing it. It was a lot of self doubt. He doesn't know if he can do this, mostly because he's still grieving over the loss of his mentor. He's been doing that ever since they had to leave him behind on the Death Star. They've been grieving, and when Biggs is gone, that's kind of almost like the last of the current support that he had from Tatooine. There is no one left on Tatooine now, um, that has any, I guess, common ground to where Luke came from. There's no one left at the end of the story. And when Obi-Wan reaches out to him and tells him use the Force, that's what Luke does. I think he's taking fire now from Vader and them, and then out of the blue, here comes Han. I guess the guilt ate at him enough. Han comes through, knocks Vader out in the middle of space, takes out the other two TIE fighters. He tells Luke to take the damn shot. Luke takes it. They head their asses back to Yavin 4, and boom, there it is. That's it. They defeat the Death Star. It's a pretty
They
cut
send
and
Vader
clear
flying
defeat.
into space.
Yeah, and he's spinning around, and
What?
it's not a complex final fight. The thing that makes it kind of hard, I get, this is the one part of the script that I actually hated reading.
Really?
Because of the scene headers, because it would get to so much and we would skip it. We would jump from this member of Red 5 to that member of Red 5, and obviously this felt more like Lucas was turning on his editor brain when he was saying, though, when I write, and I'm pretty sure it's like every other writer, uh when you write, regardless if it's books or scripts, you already feel like you're the director and the editor. You know where to cut, you know what emotions you want your characters to feel, and you know how you want to project it out there. But this felt so heavily edited, like it felt like the editor side of the brain really took control. And with that, it got to a point where I was halfway through it where I was like, fuck the damn headers. It was like, unless it's a really big thing of action lines and it's something I absolutely need to read, that's the point where I was like, no, it's like, if I can read the action lines and figure it out, I got it. Okay, this guy's coming in, this guy, it's that clear and simple. It's not that complex of an ending, but seeing it in script form, it kind of got a bit nuts. And I can imagine kind of the madman process that Lucas had to have to deal with that. It's like, oh god, well, how do I do this, do that, the pacing and everything. I'm pretty sure he was up late at night, tearing out pages just to rewrite, just to make sure it was somewhat fluid enough for the special effects team and for his team all in general to film it, to make it as clear and concise as ever. And sometimes it's real easy to get lost in that. And I'm happy to tell you guys that in the next episode, those dogfights are very limited, but they're so much more cleaner in the scripts. It's mwah, I love
It's
it.
more of a personal story. You know?
Yes, very much. And then of course, once the Death Star blows up, we have that iconic ending scene where uh, Han and Luke are being awarded the medals. Chewie gets the shaft. He doesn't get anything, though he was co-pilot with Han. So yeah. Or was Chewie down there shooting the guns? I don't think they
I'm
ever
pretty
really
sure he
specified.
was. Sure he was in the co-pilot seat the whole time.
Okay, so then chances are Chewie was the one driving and Han was the one that was firing. If I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
I mean,
Yeah. Someone had to have been firing because they do not have the weapon stuff up at the pilot thing. So yeah, they go and it's like poor fucking Chewie got the shaft, and I understand why he was crying because he was like, "Where the fuck is where's my medal?
yeah.
Where is my medal?" If George Lucas, if you want to edit your film so much, edit that scene where Chewie gets his medal. I don't care if it's a
Honestly,
little gold star on his freaking sleeve.
I personally didn't think it was a big deal. I'm probably bad for
I know
saying that, but like, it's just, hey, the main cast was Han, Luke, and Leia, so you didn't
the
really like.
Wookiee deserved as much as the reward for the hard work he
Uh,
did.
the
I know I'm
Wookiee's a
overblowing this.
sidekick. As
That doesn't matter. Freaking Robin's a sidekick of Batman, and he still gets some at least. Nice try, Robin. Like
yeah,
he at least gets something. Some kind of encouragement. But yeah, so that's it. That is Star Wars. That is the screenplay. I know we kind of got a little crazy about Midway, but so much actually happens in this. There's a lot that happens in it, and there's a lot that happens in Empire. It does slow down a bit. I actually do think that Return of the Jedi is the slowest of them all, mostly because I think there's like only really two locations. It's like two little short films, and that's about it. Um, but
I
we'll
mean,
get
yeah,
on to
there's
that.
the intro with
Yeah,
Tatooine, and yeah.
yeah, we're going back to basics with that, and then yeah, but we'll tackle that when that episode comes out later in the month. But we do have to sit there and talk about the differences between the film. Now we kind of already did. We kind of already freaking spoiled that boat. You know that boat's already sailed. But my question is to you, Chris, is do you think the Biggs parts that were deleted, that were cut out, do you really think that those scenes could have at least sat there and held up still with this film, or do
No,
you think that maybe that would have been a little too much?
I think it was been too much. The whole cutting between the space battle and Luke in the beginning needed to be cut anyways. Like,
Yeah,
and
that much I do agree.
like it's seeing you get the sense of who Biggs was to Luke after you meet Luke in the film. Like,
Yeah.
Biggs said I was right. He said I'm never getting out of here. And like you get you get enough information when they reunite at Yavin. Luke is
Yeah.
the best crack shot on Tatooine.
Hmm.
We're lucky to have him. Like
He can
you're
he shot womp rats.
yeah,
He was bragging about his shots and everything.
and just I don't think Biggs was that important of a character to have him involved in the beginning of the story like that. You know, especially when
Okay.
we're more focused on Luke anyways. And
Okay.
like you see the devastation on Luke's face when Biggs dies at the Battle of the Death Star. So
Yeah.
you know that character was important to
But I
him.
do think that just watching the final cut where like you don't have Biggs at the beginning, at least have one little scene that kind of has that,
Yeah.
because when it cuts to the whole scene where the rebels are getting ready to battle, it's already past the debrief. The Death Star is coming, and Luke crosses paths with Biggs, and it's like Luke. I'm pretty sure most people are like, who the fuck is this guy? Like,
I
it's
mean,
like this is Luke's like first time coming into the Rebel Alliance. So it's like, did Luke already know someone that was already in here? Like that's really, I think, your only question you can really ask.
yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
it's like,
if it was up to me and if I was writing the script, there would have been a moment where Luke would be like maybe watching like a hologram of Biggs, like saying, "I'm off to the academy. I'm waiting for you, brother. We'll meet up
yeah,
another day." You know, like
yeah,
something like that. And then he goes out and looks at the sun setting,
yeah,
and it's just something small like that. A
yeah.
lot of the stuff
It
in
doesn't
the
have to be a
beginning,
grandiose scene.
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of the
but
trim in the the stuff in the first act needed to be cut. You know,
yeah,
that's
because
very big
again, we're
important.
60 pages in, and it's a minute per page. I'm pretty sure, really, if you probably look at the final film, what the first act is probably maybe 45 minutes,
Probably, yeah.
maybe around there,
Yeah,
because a lot happens on Tatooine that sets up everything.
because the first 10 minutes is just the droids like on the ship
Yeah,
and the attack, and then they're wandering through the desert, and then they meet Luke, which is 15 minutes into the movie, and then you get the first act of Luke. You know,
yeah. But even then, within those first 10 minutes, you already get who the hell the main character is in this script, uh, the allies that he'll come across, and like not maybe every ally, but a good sense of his future sister. Um, the droids that really, if you watch the prequel trilogy, it's like, oh, that's his parents' droids. It's like, what do you know? But yeah, the people that will help him along his journey, you see that, and of course the big bad. You hit like so many little points within the first 10 pages, and um, I commend George Lucas on doing so. I'm lucky enough to even get something like that done within my first 10 pages. That's got to be at least 8 drafts or so later on down the road for me.
yeah.
But yeah, so then my question is, if Biggs didn't die in that movie, could you sit there and see him become a major part of the Rebel Alliance going forward in the sequels? Could he have been someone kind of
It,
uh like the head pilot, like, or maybe the new Red 5 leader right next to Luke?
I feel like if Han wasn't a character and if Han didn't return, then yes, but they pretty much I think used the Biggs archetype in the sequel trilogy with Poe. Like that's
Yeah.
who I feel like Poe
You mean
is.
Han, not Poe?
Wait, what? Sorry,
You
what?
said Poe.
Yeah, no, I mean like Poe in the sequel trilogy. That's who I
Uh
think
huh.
Biggs was like to
Oh,
the
okay,
story.
okay.
You know, like that's who Biggs would have become. Is kind of the Poe character. He's an ace
Yeah,
pilot in the Rebel Alliance. He's devoted to fighting the Empire or
but
Force
he was
First
more of a
Order.
hothead, you know.
Yeah, but
Uh, I think that's the one thing I would really give the sequel trilogy any shot was that they really tried to make characters out of anyone that was not related to Skywalker.
yeah,
Like they tried to hold their ground, but again, the writing wasn't nearly as cohesive.
yeah. Well, that's what happens when you don't plan your trilogy. They don't plan the
But
story, and
sometimes
then
too, you look
people
at
spin.
Halloween if they planned a damn trilogy and look how where that went. So you win some,
Halloween
you lose
was
some.
oh crap, our movie was successful. Now we have to deliver two more movies.
Well, no,
Shit.
they had the second script because they wanted to film the first two back to back.
Oh, they did.
And then they were like, "Well, shit, no." It's like we need to see if people even care about this franchise anymore. It's been
I
how
wouldn't
long
have
since Rob
guessed
Zombie?
because that
Uh,
was just. I really wouldn't have guessed with Halloween because like man, the padding of that was in part two freaking
yeah,
killed me, man. I hated that
yeah.
part. I hated Halloween kills. Kills were cool,
So
but just the story was just yeah.
yeah,
We're getting off topic.
so
Back to Star Wars.
so okay. I actually like that you brought up that maybe if Biggs was still around and Han wasn't there, then maybe he would have been like the Poe character. He would have
Yeah,
been probably the hothead. Um, so our final thoughts. What do you think about the script?
it's a great script. It's everything I would want in a fantasy sci-fi epic. You know, like
Exactly.
you become a knight, you save the princess, and you destroy the evil. You defeat the evil lord, and you destroy his castle. You know, like it's simple
Like
and
Mario.
it takes place in Mario. Oh yeah, Mario. I was like
Yeah,
Mario.
Mario.
Super
Not
Mario.
our
Okay,
friend Mario. Not our
okay.
friend Mario. Super Mario. There you
I
go.
was like, when has Mario done that? What is he off on his own adventures?
What else do you think he's been doing in Mexico?
uh, yeah, but yeah, I mean, like this was a great little script for that
Yeah.
blew up into a successful franchise, and you see why. You know, reading the script,
Hmm.
you see the creativity that George Lucas was trying to put into the script, and
Yeah.
the characters are unique, and you understand their motivations. You understand what the Rebel Alliance is. You understand what the Empire is, and just like that first opening shot with the small Rebel cruiser being fired upon by the Empire's Star Destroyer, like you understand. You don't even need the crawl because you get
Yeah.
that it's the little guy being attacked by the big gray soulless bad guy. You know, it,
Yeah. I also kind of think
George.
that we needed the crawl though, because since this was like the middle of what was supposed to be a bigger story, I think that's really just what became the birth of the crawl. And then they just
Yeah.
kept doing it because it was like it's so iconic, you
Lucas was
know?
scared they didn't that people wouldn't like understand what was going on. But like I
Yeah.
think that was more of Lucas just not being having confidence in himself, I think. Because this was just really
There's a
like
lot that when you watch the Industrial Light and Magic documentary, they talk a lot about that.
yeah.
And they even sit there. They talk about that. What was it? I think he wanted to sit there go through something else in his career, and then he got into a car accident, and then that's what I think made him want to do film.
Yeah.
It was weird because it kind of reminds me a bit of the director of Mad Max, where he was like I think he was going to be a surgeon, um, and then like he would see like these horrible car wrecks, and somehow that inspired him to be a filmmaker. I'm pretty sure there's some missing plot points to that freaking story, but that's like the general gist of like
I
this is how
know
I wanted to do something in film
I know
was.
Spielberg had a similar thing. Like remember we taught like he went to his counselor and was like, "Hey, I'm kind of done with the program I'm doing. I want to get into this film." And then they were like, "Why you bother? You're just gonna go to Vietnam anyways." And they were like, "Fuck you, just let him
God.
go." But
but
yeah,
but yeah, it's a wonderful script. It is. I don't like the end battle scene. That's something. That's probably something I'll like if I ever read the script again. It's like, ah, fuck this scene. I know what this. I know what happens. It's like I'll read the last page and,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely a huge wonder. It's so much happens, and you know, it's a nice starting off point. I'm really happy that this is where George started, even though it was the cheaper of. I think he had 9 films planned out. I think allegedly
9 or 12. The story
something like
mixes
that,
sometimes, but I think it was more nine than anything. You know.
but he picked the perfect way, and I think that this is the perfect film to sit there and start out our podcast with. You know, it's a monumental film of its time. I think it's actually in the U.S. registry uh, for
You mean
its
like the
influence on
Library of
pop culture.
Congress? Or
Yeah, the Library of Congress. There you go. Uh, and again, folks, it's like if you haven't watched Star Wars, obviously we just fucking ruined it for you.
what are you doing with your life? Go watch Star Wars. It's fun
Pretty
even if
much,
you don't know what's going on. It's just the movie
exactly.
that you watch every year.
Yeah, it's Space Indiana Jones, but Indiana Jones isn't the main character. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Um, and with that, folks, that is all. That is all for our intro to Cinema Alley. That is the it's the end. Kind of sad to say goodbye, but it's not forever. It's only the first episode. You're gonna hear my voice plenty of times as well as Chris's.
Yep.
But that'll do it all for today, folks. Chris, where can the people find you on social media?
Just look up the name Zealous Slacker. I'm getting more stuff on there eventually, but like that's the name I'm going by. Zealous Slacker on Twitter or Instagram, Facebook. Starting trying to get a YouTube channel and blog started up when I have free time, but that's where you can find me.
And folks, you can find me at the Gothic Storyteller on Instagram and on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review on this on whatever platform you are listening to. And remember, folks, never stop watching movies.